When it comes crashing down and it hurts inside, you've got to be the man. It don't help to hide. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my WrestleMania 3 review. Welcome to Pontiac, Michigan, to the Pontiac Silverdome, as 93,000 people all cram in to this arena to witness absolute history. This is where WrestleMania for me starts to really take an upturn and be like, wow, we need to start to take it seriously from right now. We start off with that iconic intro from Vince McMahon. Welcome to WrestleMania! Before he throws it to Aretha Franklin to sing America the Beautiful. And as the camera pans around the building, you can just see masses and masses of people there. And it really threw me back to when I was at WrestleMania 32 in Dallas, Texas, the biggest WrestleMania, the biggest WWE show of all time. I looked around the place and I was thinking, wow, it's massive, but I don't think I really took it in. And I was thinking on this show, can you imagine being front row? Because I was really starting to take it in watching this. That wow, it might not be 93,000. Dave Meltzer disputes that. He says the official records dispute that, but what WWE put out there as their official was different to what the official stuff, the gatekeeping, all that was. But hey, it's still tons and tons of people, and as the camera was panning all around the place, I was really thinking, wow, can you imagine being sat front row? Shouts out to my mate Troy, by the way. Troy was sat front row at WrestleMania 32, the biggest show of all time, so wow. The view he would have had from ringside and then looking all around, he would have had the best seat in the house. After America the Beautiful, we go to Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura. Yes, that famous WWE commentary pairing is finally debuting here together, and oh, it's gold from the get-go. And they introduced some celebrity guests. Bob Uecker, he's a baseball guy. Then Mary Hart, I'm not too sure who she was, but then she played into later on the Hart Foundation, Neidhart, Jimmy Hart, Bret Hart, all that stuff. The first match of the night though was the magnificent Don Muraco and Bob Orton Jr. taking on the Can-Am Connection, Tom Zenk and Rick Martel. This is where the enormity of the event is really starting to sink in, and commentary, they're properly hammering it and really helping it sink home. And typically when WWE do this, it's overhyped. WWE like to make their own records. Like they'll make the longest episodic running weekly television program in history, when it's not really the longest running TV show in history. They make their own niche within it. Like, oh, we're the longest weekly show that's been running in history. Yeah, we'll go with that. But I mean, it is what it is. WWE likes to overhype things, but that's how as a business you do things. You hype it, you create value in it by hyping it. Like me saying, this is the greatest wrestling YouTube channel of all time, and you should subscribe so you can be part of the revolution in wrestling YouTube history. Now that might be true, it might not be true. We'll have to see in 30 years time how many of you do subscribe and become part of wrestling history. The Can-Am Connection ended up getting a win in this match. They had a lovely little crossbody into a trip finish, which for the time was revolutionary. Modern day, nowadays, you'll see that as a transition spot in tag team wrestling, but for back then, it was revolutionary, and that was the finish. Next up was Hercules Hernandez versus Billy Jack Haynes. Now, this match debuted the famous WrestleMania 3 cart, as Bobby Heenan and Hercules Hernandez came down on the cart, and then Billy Jack Haynes came out too. And Billy Jack was wearing this like sparkly outfit, which he looks like an absolute star. Now, I don't know what issues he had backstage. I don't know what happened to him in his time in WWE. He had shoot interviews in years later where he said a lot of off-the-wall stuff, a lot of conspiracy theory type stuff that's not believed in many circles. They believe that Billy Jack Haynes might have some kind of issues going on where he's not remembering things correctly, let's say. But this was a decent match. They put in a good video package beforehand about the full Nelson, how both guys were the master of the full Nelson, which one was going to put it on the other one, as if the full Nelson is a valid finish for a match at WrestleMania. Hey, Bobby Lashley. Another thing about Billy Jack Haynes is he had Oregon all over his tights and stuff. He's really hyping his home place, which, you know, all power to you, know. People don't really do that as much because it kind of alienates you from other places, but I think if you can become a massive star in one place, that will help you. The finish comes when Billy Jack Haynes, he has the full Nelson locked in. Hercules grabs for the ropes, he pulls them both outside. Billy Jack ends up getting the full Nelson on him again on the outside, and this time they get counted out for the 10 count. Then we had a 6-man tag team match as King Kong Bundy, Little Tokyo and Lord Littlebrook took on Hillbilly Jim, the Haiti Kid, and Little Beaver. Now I'm sure you can guess from all the names with all the littles in there. This was what they called back in the day a midget match. It's what I would probably call now a little person match. Oh, listen, I'll be honest with you. I don't know the correct PC term for it. That's why I'm going to try and not use them. I'll tell you what they referred to it back in the day. But like I say, I don't know the right term. And I kind of feel like when it's a tricky situation like this, instead of offend someone for no reason, because I'll be honest with you, to me, it doesn't matter what I call them. You tell me what you want to be called, I'll call you that. It doesn't matter to me. But rather than just say something that's wrong and disrespectful to people, I'd rather not do that, because I'm not that kind of guy. Why would I insult you for no reason? This match, we had promos from both teams beforehand, which I kind of like that. It kind of got me into it. Like I said, this is where WrestleMania starts to really pick up. We're not just having matches and throwing stuff out there. We're not just paying off feuds, but we're also building them on the show so you can see why it means something, so that if you're travelling to this show and you don't watch WWE, you're one of the 93,000 people. They're saying, listen, thanks for turning up. We're not going to punish you for not knowing what's going on. We're going to fill in all the gaps so you can enjoy this as much as possible, so that next time one of these happens, you can just come to this again and not have to worry about having to watch week to week. We'll just fill you in. They had some good spots in this match. The premise was that Hillbilly Jim and King Kong Bundy could only be in the ring together, and then all their other partners could only be in the ring against each other. But obviously, King Kong Bundy turns heel, takes advantage, squishes them and becomes the bad guy, and then they all turn against him. I really enjoyed it. Now you can say this is gimmicky, but hey, it's giving these professionals a job. It's giving them a spot on the biggest show of all time. And as a kid, I loved it because it really made a huge bad guy out of King Kong Bundy. These past two shows that I'd watched beforehand, WrestleMania 1, the quick squash match, great, he looked scary. The second one, the cage match with Hogan, didn't really do anything for me, to be honest with you, but this one, they actually made him into this evil bad guy who I want to see get his comeuppance. Obviously the Haiti Kid, Little Beaver and Hillbilly Jim got the win. Then we had the King Harley race versus the Junkyard Dog. Now the build-up going into this match was all about Harley Race being the king and kind of playing on that racial angle a little bit of saying to Junkyard Dog, hey, you got to bow down at my feet and kiss my feet. I am above you, I'm the king. They didn't directly play into it, at least on this promo package, they didn't show anything like that. But you could tell that was kind of an element of it, and it's kind of what made the Junkyard Dog such a great character to get behind, because no matter who you are, you can get behind and say, hey, that's not right, I don't support that, you shouldn't have to kiss his feet. In fact, you can even better him in this match and prove that you're the better man. And hey, that was a really big part of it, and I was really enjoying that aspect of it. The match itself, though, was a bit slow and prodding, and I didn't really like it too much. And another thing is this weird trope in pro wrestling about kissing another man's feet. I mean, it doesn't really happen anymore because it's daft and they got rid of it. But like, isn't it really weird that in those days it was like, hey, this is a serious storyline, and I want you to kiss my feet. It's just really, really bizarre, isn't it? After the match, JYD, he nails Harley Race with a chair. He steals his gown, he steals his crown. It's all good stuff from there. Then we had the Dream Team, Brutus Beefcake and Greg Valentine taking on Jacques and Raymond, the Rougeaus brothers. This was an okay match, but this was more to tell the story of Brutus the Barber Beefcake and where he was going to move away from being a heel and become a face again. What happened was Dino Bravo came down to help the Dream Team, Valentine gets the win over the Rougeaus, and then afterwards, Beefcake's in the ring with the Rougeaus like, no, this ain't right, we cheated to win, I don't like it. And that feeds into what happens later on. As next up, we had Roddy Piper, finally a babyface at WrestleMania, taking on adorable Adrian Adonis in a hair match. Now, the story going into this one was that Roddy Piper was about to leave the WWF. They even mentioned it on commentary. This will be the last time you ever see Roddy Piper. Because Piper was going off to Hollywood, and he was going off to make movies, which, you know, fair play to him. He was in that rock and wrestling era. He was in those matches with Mr. T, and he made himself a name in the mainstream. Why not take advantage of it and make more money elsewhere and save your body all that hassle? There were loads of little spots in this match between Roddy Piper and Jimmy Hart. There was a nice spot at the end where Adonis, he thinks he's won by sleeper and he starts celebrating, but of course he hasn't won. Because this is where Brutus Beefcake comes back into play. He just randomly comes back down to the ring, revives Roddy Piper, because obviously what happened in the last match with Dino Bravo and Valentine and the Rougeaus, that's been like, oh no, now I've got to be a great fence to Roddy Piper all of a sudden. Runs down to the ring, revives Roddy Piper, Piper gets up, puts Adonis in a sleeper hold, and then wins the match by sleeper. I like that aspect, you know, Adonis thinks he's won by sleeper, but actually Piper wins by sleeper. Clever stuff, eh? Then something that I never noticed all the times that I've watched it, because I actually have this on VHS. Shout out to PPW Podcast, Physical Media for Life, bro. A fan rushed into the ring to celebrate with Roddy Piper. Now, I don't know if on my VHS this was always cut off and never shown, but in the copy that I watched back this week, Piper was just like, what's going on? And then obviously the security got him out of there and stuff. After the match, because it was a hair match, Beefcake and Piper cut Adonis's hair. Well, I'll say Beefcake and Piper. Piper doesn't really do much. Piper's just got his foot on Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart's kind of squirming like, no, Adrian, I gotta save you. As Beefcake's cutting his hair, and here we go. We're going to see the barber start to take off as a face from here. Piper, of course, again, that great wrestling trope of taking the hair and throwing it into the crowd like, hey, look, this is real. We can celebrate. We're not just cutting a wig. We're cutting his real hair, and you can see. I was thinking during this moment, can you imagine having Adrian Adonis' hair from WrestleMania 3? Somebody had that thrown at them. If it was me, I would have pocketed it. I pocket everything when I'm at WrestleMania. If Shane McMahon's money dropped from the ceiling like it did at WrestleMania 32, I took it. The confetti from when Daniel Bryan won the title, I took it. I took all of that stuff because that stuff of legend, you have a piece of wrestling history. If you're in the front row and you've got Adrian Adonis' actual hair, you can get that, take it. But that's my sicko wrestling mind. Who wants another man's hair? Hey, I do, because that's part of wrestling history. I'd have it and display it. Maybe even flip it. In the current climate, people probably pay a lot of money for that, and hey, I'd definitely keep it though, you know. Now, as the show is going on, obviously it's going from the light of daytime to the darkness of night, and the way this stadium is built, the light really shines through the top of it, so as it gets dark, the arena gets dark, so the aesthetic of it starts to change, and that's a really pleasing aspect of this WrestleMania. Next up, we had the Hart Foundation, which is Bret Hart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart and Jimmy Hart by their side with their tag team partner Dangerous Danny Davis taking on the British Bulldogs Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid along with their partner Tito Santana in a 3-on-3 match. Now the story playing into this one was that the Hart Foundation had beaten the British Bulldogs for the tag team titles thanks to some terrible refereeing from Danny Davis. Also, Tito Santana had lost the Intercontinental title because of Danny Davis, so now those three all want revenge on Danny Davis. The Hart Foundation have to team up with him and have his back. Commentary mentioned an absolutely brilliant thing here, you know, bang on, where they said Danny Davis is now banned from refereeing for life. Plus 10 years. Not because for life isn't enough, they have to ban him plus 10 years just in case he comes back after he dies. Which, incredible stuff. Side note, I've actually met Bret Hart, my all-time favourite wrestler. Absolutely loved that moment. But I also met Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and I even met Danny Davis as well. Sadly, I never got to meet either of the British Bulldogs, and I've not met Tito Santana yet. But hey, maybe one day. This match was really enjoyable, and obviously Danny Davis ends up getting the win in the end, which, you know, it's kind of a bit horrible. I wouldn't like it nowadays, but back then, it just seemed kind of fun. Then we had the natural Butch Reed versus Koko Beware, and Slick was in the corner of Butch Reed. Now, this match wasn't really that great as a match itself, but the commentary, Ventura and Monsoon are on form. With their back and forth, I was really enjoying it in this match. Butch Reed ends up getting the win, and then Tito Santana, again another instance of someone from the last match coming into this match, comes out to attack Slick. Then we had one of the most famous pro wrestling matches of all time. The Intercontinental title belt was on the line as the Macho Man Randy Savage defends against Ricky Steamboat. Savage is in the iconic pink and yellow gear. They show the video package. The Savage had injured Ricky Steamboat's throat previously, and this is his time to get revenge. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've never really appreciated this match for what it was, especially because, you know, I started being a wrestling fan in 1993. This is from what, 88, maybe 87? It's just not on that same level in terms of action for me, because I've seen on a week-to-week basis a lot of this stuff played into it. But in this match, they had a lot of false finishes and a lot of cutting-edge stuff for the time, and I can see why people really enjoyed it. And of course, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat gets the win and is your new Intercontinental Champion. Now, I mentioned the PPW podcast earlier. They actually did a podcast on WrestleMania 3 with someone who was there in person, and it was really interesting listening to their take on it because they were a kid. They were just there for Hogan and Andre. They asked them, what did you think of Steamboat versus Savage, seen as one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time? And they said, listen, I'll be honest with you, when I was there, I thought it was fun and all, but I wasn't thinking anything of it because I couldn't wait for the main event. I couldn't wait for Hulk Andre. Next up, we have Jake the Snake Roberts with Alice Cooper by his side against the Honky Tonk Man. Again, this is a bit of a nothing match, but the story of it is quite good. Honky Tonk Man got the win by holding onto the ropes, cheating to win. Afterwards, Jake the Snake Roberts was fuming, nails him with a guitar, and then Alice Cooper puts the snake on Jimmy Hart. Classic storytelling after the match. Within the match, not too great, but hey, you know what? It is what it is. Then we had Nikolai Volkoff, who I've also met, with the Iron Sheik taking on the Killer Bees. Now, obviously, at the start of this match, Volkoff and Sheik want to sing the Russian national anthem. As Volkoff tries to start it, here comes Jim Duggan because he just cannot accept that other countries have their own national anthems. He just cannot abide by them. He runs down. I've met Jim Duggan, by the way, and he was a lovely, lovely bloke. Jim Duggan comes down with a 2x4, clears the ring, and then this is where the match starts. By this point, there's tons of garbage in the ring because fans are just throwing stuff in there because they hate Sheik and Volkoff. This really is a different time because nowadays, fans wouldn't dare do that because they'd be scared of getting kicked out. But in these days of pro wrestling, when it was real to me, damn it,
it's still real to me, damn it,
they would do it all the time. The match itself was fun. For all I say about the fans and the xenophobia and all that stuff, it does kind of play into it being a good match. And for me, that's more of a positive on the WWE being able to tell that story well, and not a positive on the fans who, come on, they made you look like absolute idiots, fans, come on, that was just stupid. But the referee doesn't even clear the rubbish out of the ring all the way through it. At the end, Iron Sheik's got the camel clutch on, break his back and make him humble. And then Jim Duggan comes down. Jim Duggan and the Iron Sheik, by the way, have weird history together because they actually got caught on the New Jersey Turnpike with Rougeaus in their car, and it was a huge thing at the time because obviously on TV they were seen as enemies. Duggan in years to come was saying, listen, we weren't friends in real life, we just happened to be in the same car at the same time this day. But whether it was Shicky Babies, it was Z, or whether it was actually Duggan stuff, we don't know. But either way, they got caught with it and got done. And Jim Duggan's dad was actually a policeman and wasn't too happy with his son now, was he? But yes, the match ends. Duggan nails Shiky Baby with the 2x4, and I believe this gave the DQ win to Sheik and Volkoff. Then we had the main event of the evening. Hulk Hogan defending the WWF title against Andre the Giant. They showed the video package before this one. How couldn't they have? How Hogan and Andre were friends when Hogan first won the title. Andre poured the champagne over his head in celebration. But as the years went on, Andre became a little bit jealous. He heard those little whispers in his ear, people saying that should be you. You have been beating everyone for all these years and have never had a title shot. But your friend Hogan, your friend the Hulkster, has had all the shots. He's had all the opportunities, but that should be you, Andre. And then Andre turns on him. He rips his necklace off him. He rips his shirt off him. This means business. Hogan's like, no, brother, no. Why will you do this to me? We're friends. I don't want to fight you. But eventually, he gives in and right, okay, WrestleMania 3, it's going to be Hogan versus Andre. Then Hogan cuts a promo, and Hogan is starting to really hit his peak at this point because as he cuts his promo, he really draws you into it. He says, listen, there's 90,000 people out there. They're about to witness history as I pick up that big angry giant. And you start to really believe, you start to be like, wow, this is a big deal. There's 90,000 people there. You might be a football fan. In the UK, one of the biggest teams, Man United, they got what? 60,000, 70,000 seat stadium? This is 90,000. You might think watching Man United is a big deal when they have games. This is 90,000 people. Wembley in the UK, England games, has got about 90,000 people. And by the way, come on, we all know they should take it back to Wembley. Give us that awesome visual of WWE back at Wembley. But hey, that is a story for another day because I'm sure I could go on and on and on about that. Another interesting part about this is they showed Hogan's parents celebrating with him when he won the title. That was very, very interesting. As the match was about to start, Jesse the Bunny Ventura reads the tail of the tape, and again, he made this seem like a big deal. He hadn't done that for the rest of the show. You do that in legitimate fights because it's a big deal. The audience need to know the differences between the fighters so they can kind of have a gauge of what's going on. You got the 6'5" guy versus the 6'3" guy. He's got a 2-inch advantage. He's got the reach advantage. He's got the pythons. He's got this. He's got that. Ventura did an absolute brilliant job of that. As the match starts, Hogan tries to get the slam. This has been the story. He picks him up and crumble. Hogan crashes to the mat. Andre's on top of him. 1, 2. He rolls the shoulder out. He kicks out. Oh my goodness. Excitement is building. Can Hogan slam the Giant? Well, it's been answered. He can. He's just tried it and he's failed. And then Andre's almost beating him straight away. This is a really perilous position for Hogan now because we've seen he cannot slam the Giant. We've seen Andre almost win in the first 30 seconds. What's going to happen next? Andre starts to build dominance, but he doesn't just do that. He slams Hogan. Insult to injury. Andre's got the upper hand all the way through, and then Hogan, he starts to slightly build in. And then Hogan says, Andre says to him, "Slam me, boss." Hogan picks up the Giant. Well, not quite like that. He picks up a bit like that. He just rolls it. He just rolls it. He doesn't really pick him up and slam him down. He kind of picks him slightly, rotates his hips out, rotates the hips, and drops the Giant. But hey, it's still an impressive feat, right? I couldn't do it. Hogan slams the Giant, gets the pin. 1, 2, 3. Hogan gets the win. WrestleMania 3 goes off air with the hoster giving it the big pose and all that because Hogan must pose. Shouts out to the Bruce Pritchard podcast. What do I think of this show? This is one of the very first shows I remember my mum buying me from the car boot sale on VHS. I don't know if it was cheap. I don't know if they'd made loads and loads of copies and that's why there was just loads floating about. Maybe the price dropped. I don't know. What I do know is I must have watched this about 50 times through the years because I would always go back and watch it. This is the earliest VHS tape that I had. So anytime I wanted to go back and watch my wrestling, I would do it in a complete lot and I would start from WrestleMania 3. Then I'd pull the VHS tape out slightly of the one that I was up to so I knew where to catch up on. I would love those days of going through watching these shows one by one by one by one. And to go back to what I was saying, I must have seen this 50 times and at no point did I ever appreciate this as much as I did this most recent time that I've watched it. As a show, this is probably an 8 out of 10 show, and if I'm recommending it to my nephews to say a show that you gotta watch, this is probably one of them because this, not just the enormity of it, not just the grand scale, but what we saw historically. In terms of a fantasy booker, I don't want to touch this one. I'm very, very happy with how this turned out. I might have fantasy booked this one in years past, but now looking at it, I think they did an absolutely beautiful job. But what do you guys think of WrestleMania 3? What do you guys think of this review? Are you enjoying the series? Are you watching it as I do them? Or maybe you're watching them in 50 years' time. Maybe I've got at this point 86 WrestleMania reviews in the books and you're going back through one by one, who knows? Either way, drop me a comment down below, let me know what you think. If you are enjoying this series, please hit the subscribe button down below, ding the notification bell, that way you'll be notified every time a new one drops. If you haven't already, please hit the like button, and with that, I am out. Thank you very, very much for spending some time today.